using tier 1 short codes and keyword combinations. So what I mean by a short code is a tier 1 short code is a 5 or 6 digit number that is set up with all the mobile carriers so that you have complete coverage. Anybody can text you from anywhere in the United States. We route it, though, for your clients using the zip code. So for INR or a keyword, if you guys have another program that you set up with us, it might be a keyword that they text instead of the zip code. But for standard INR, the live help piece, so getting live support through your agency, individuals will text their zip code to 898211. So the zip code and then the short code is 898211. The short code will always be the same, right? Always going to be 898211. And that's shared by dozens and dozens of 211s, kind of like the number 211 and calling it is shared. And then what changes for folks, depending on where you are, is your zip code. And for most people, 99.9% of the population, they know what their zip code is. For those that don't, they ask the guy next to them, hey, what's our zip code here? And they get it. So we've had 0 issues with people having problems with that concept of texting their zip code to 898211, which has been really good and helpful because you start the conversation with at least that much information, their mobile number and their zip code, which, for a lot of 211s, that's sort of the building blocks, right, for getting, providing live help. Start there, start somewhere there. Now we can automate things like when they text their zip code, if it's a single county, we can automatically populate their profile with their zip code and their county. So now we've got phone number, zip, and county already part of the opt-in. And so, and then we can further automate, right? So right now we're in the learning place. And when people text their zip code and it's a zip code in your service area, right now they're getting a bounce back message that says, hey, live help isn't available at this time, but if you do need live support, please call 211 or visit our online database website. Or I think we just give them your website home page. But when you go live, we're going to swap that out and we're going to put in your live messages. And your live messages could ask things like, before we get started, please text your name, age, gender, issue. Tell us more about your issue. You get the point. The opt-in process is defined by you guys, the administrators. You guys make a decision. What are we going to do? How are we going to, when somebody texts a zip code and it's in our service area, what are we going to tell them? And then those messages, whatever they are, if it's one message or if it's multiple messages, then those will go out and then you'll have that opt-in. And at that point, once you get back the information you want, if you ask additional information or not, then it's opening the case up, pulling it from the queue, opening it up, assigning yourself as responder, and providing the live support. So very, very straightforward functionality, which we'll have a look at in a moment. For settings, administrators will want to have a look at the 211 folder. Okay? This 211 folder has a lot of information in it, has sample content, what other 211s have used, like the canned messages. And the canned messages are important because we're not putting those into the service. You are. We put some placeholder suggestions in there, but administrators will ultimately, or staff will ultimately do the adding of those canned messages. And I stress this because canned messages, you can have as many as you want, and you can also have as many groups of canned messages as you want, which is really nice. For live help, it's good to be able to have variety and a lot of capacity in that way. because typing, as we all know, we want to limit, right? Typing can wear down someone's hands after a while, carpal tunnel, all those things that pop up. So with canned message libraries, if they're fine-tuned to your INR encounters, then you don't have to hand type each message, right? You're just substituting in, use this canned message for this part, use this canned, and you can have canned messages for transition text. You can have canned messages by issue. When somebody's asking for a food bank, here's the group of canned messages you go to for that. So really have some thinking on that. And, you know, how does it do that? Just a second here. So with the canned messages, just have some thinking on that, because that's going to help you guys. You know, these are just examples, and they're not even grouped. This is just ideas on what other agencies have used. Now, additional capacity with canned messages is this: you can give a specialist permission to build their own. So you might have a specialist that's super savvy with technology and likes the text platform, likes to have conversations with clients through the text platform, and they would appreciate it if they could just take a group of canned messages and make them their own, so that when they log in, they see their canned messages, not the groups. So you have the option to do either one of those models. It can be a combination where you have groups that are for everybody to use, and then you have personal canned message libraries that when Janet logs in, or when logs in, or when Aaron logs in, or right, that they see the messages that they've added. And what's nice about that is, you know, you can put your name in the messages. Hi, my name is Jonathan. How can I help you today? So that you don't have to use a generic canned message and then edit it. So that is really important. Getting your mind, administrators, your mind wrapped around the canned messages and what you're going to do there, because that's really how the architecture of your live help begins, is when you get that all sorted out. Now, you don't have to have it all figured out at one time. Canned messages can be an evolving thing. For instance, you know, we have agencies that turn off libraries, or, you know, edit over libraries, or, you know, remove libraries, and then start over, you know, because they didn't feel like they got it right the first time. We have other agencies that have seasonal libraries that they only turn on for like tax season. Why have canned messages that you're never going to use until 3 months, until they're, you know, 3 months out of the year, right? Or if there's energy assistance canned messages, why have those turned on if you're only going to be using them during the cold snaps, or during, you know, periods of time where you know, maybe that's not a good, maybe you are doing energy assistance year round. But for seasonal issues, you know, having those be able to be turned on and off is really nice. So, you know, have a think on that and what you're going to do and what you're going to add there. Now, guides and startup materials. So, administrators, this is an important folder. This is the call to action guidelines. What this does is this tells you what you got to do when you post on your website the call to action. So when you go, okay, Jonathan, we're ready to start. This is our opt-in messages. This is how we're gonna provide live help, and you know, swap out all of our temporary messages with the live messages, and we're going to launch on such and such date. Specialists are trained, they're happy. We got to post on our website. We're going to do a press release, but we're also going to update our website, let people know. In addition to calling us, they can text their zip code. You might even put it on your IVR if people are on hold. So while they're on hold, say, hey, by the way, text your zip code 898211 to get some support, so that you're using your channels to offload or transfer communication from one to the other. text your zip code to 898-211, if it goes on a website, needs to have this little phrase right here. You can put that in the footer, or you can put it just below the call to action, wherever you like. This link, it's all about end user privacy. It's all about how you're not collecting, you're not going to be texting them to try to sell them products. They're not going to get unsolicited texts from other entities. All those things, right? All those important things about end user privacy. If you want to take the content from that page about 898-211 and put it on your website, that's fine. We just need you to point to the content, the policies tied to 898-211. When you have a moment, go to that website page and have a look at the 898-211 policies. It's interesting because there's some historical information in there as well. How you can kind of see its roots when you read through the policies. If 898-211 was set up for 211 related services right from the get-go. It was designed, the carriers understand it to be that. They know exactly the kind of communication that goes down. They know also that in a disaster, that information, that particular short code and the communication that happens on it needs to be carefully thought about, right? So that there's or at least addressed in a way that if there's problems, we have the support of the aggregator and the carriers to circle around and resolve quickly, because everybody knows 898-211 is the texting number for 211s. So when you click on this link, that will tell you about a lot of short codes. It will also include 898-211 policies and terms and conditions. So when you post on your website, not a big deal. If you put it in the footer, it shows up on all pages. So then you don't have to worry about doing it ever again. The footer's a nice place for it also, because that's usually where you do your end user privacy statements anyway. So putting this in that spot is consistent with how other people know it to exist. And then you can also do tricky things like clicking to text, right, on your website, HTML code. So that when somebody goes, oh, I can text my zip code to 898-211, you make that a hyperlink. So if they're on their mobile phone while they're browsing your website, they click that and it automatically opens up their texting application with 898-211 auto-populated. Then they just need to type their zip code and they're done. So some suggestions there on simple click to text, very easy to do. Your web developer, if they need some support there, just reach out to us. If you don't have a web developer, the third party, reach out to us. I'm sure we can work out some assistance to help you guys. You know, a lot of people are browsing the web now through their smartphone. Fascinating statistic. Pew Research reported 80% of web browsing in the United States is happening on smartphones. Amazing. That's why data plans are what they are. That's why, you know, it's all, when you get a plan these days, it's all about how much data you're going to use, because people are using the internet through their mobile phone. Here's some tips on call to action, suggestions, more suggestions and things like that. Another document here that you want to pay attention to is if you want to set up additional keywords, this is the keyword creation guide. This takes you through all of the steps of getting a new keyword. By launching with us, you by default have all of your zip codes active. Those are all your primary keywords and they're already activated. But there might be other programs and services that you want to run. There might be a project that you want to do that's a group texting project. So it's consulting with us to then get that keyword activated on your behalf. And then we can run that through a separate queue from your INR queue. But this is the instructions on what an administrator would do to go about getting additional keywords for your uses. And then this right here is the user guide, which is about 16, 17 pages, or 19 pages long, sorry. And it tells you exactly what you got to do to get started. So, and with pictures and images of the UI. We need to update this because we just had a new release of the UI, which allows you now to not just have concurrent conversations with clients, but see all conversations at one time. You can use this guide, like let's say you had no prior experience. You could get this guide and you could read through it and you could start to respond to cases in the queue. So it's that kind of a getting started guide. Read this, activate your login credentials, log in, open up a case, have a conversation. Not so much about administrative stuff. Administrative stuff shows up in other guides and other documents. Like this staff creation guide is all about adding a new staff profile, something that an administrator at your site would be able to do. You're going to want to have a look at that. We help you initially set up all your staff, but ultimately you're going to want to know, well, what permissions? You know, do we let a staff see the reports tab? Do we let a staff edit the canned responses? Or do we just let them have personal canned responses? Or do we not give them anything, right? So you'll need to make some decisions about what things staff can and can't see. This document here helps you make those decisions. And if you ever have a question, reach out to us. support@preventionpaystext.com. In the guide, our support protocol is at the back. I'm going to make somebody dizzy. Okay. So yeah, here, for support@preventionpaystext.com, this is how you would go about getting some assistance if you're stuck. And there's also some troubleshooting tips. As far as browsers are concerned, any browser except Internet Explorer is going to be fine. And also, please note, Internet Explorer is going to be abandoned entirely by Microsoft in the near future. They're moving to a new browser called Edge. Edge is going to be supported in PreventionPays Text. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. You know, check out the fate of Internet Explorer. You can do a browse on that, and then check out what they're doing with Edge. EDGE. All right. So this is the guide and the startup materials, keyword creation, reports description. Another great important document administrators need to know about. This tells you exactly what's in each report. Crucial reports that you want to learn about are things like the encounters report, the all users report. Who's texting us? What zip codes are they using? How many conversations? How many incomings? How many outgoings? How many conversations did this specialist handle versus this specialist, right? The encounters report is kind of like your text message equivalent of the call report. This is going to give you the metrics of your live help by text. It's going to give you an encounter ID for each encounter. It's going to give you the phone number, the number of outgoings, the number of incomings, how long was it in minutes, hours, who was the responder, and how long did it take for that responder to take that case? From the point when they opted in to the point when the responder actually opened the case. Start date and time, and the zip code that was used. So that encounters report, as you can see, is kind of exactly that, your stats on your calls, but text. And it's got a little bit more details in it, right, than a call report. Call report might just be, this is how many calls we had, this is how long they were. This has a little more substance in it. The number of outgoings, the number of incomings. What was the response time? The zip code that was used, the mobile number. Each encounter gets a unique ID in the system. So you can always track a case by the phone number or by the encounter ID. Okay. Other reports, survey responses. Are you going to run a survey? If you're going to run a survey, at what time do you run it? And then what's the data? Let me see how people are responding to the survey. You can also pull a single responder record, just an export of everything that happens with that client. You can also run responder reports. How are my responders doing? How are my specialists doing? What are their login times? How many encounters did they handle? What's the longest one they handled? What's the shortest, all that stuff, the metrics of the responder. Then you can export your conversations just to see what's going on. Right? What happens during these conversations? What's said? Are they using the canned messages properly? The unroutables report is all phone numbers that for whatever reason weren't able to get a text message from your service. So one reason is you send a referral to somebody you're on the phone with. They give you their landline instead of their mobile number. That's going to show up in the unroutable because we can't send a text message to a landline. Another reason for an unroutable is a deactivated mobile number. Some people deactivate their mobile number. So the unroutable report tracks that. Having a look at the report's description just to know what the heck is in them and why you're going to run them. And then run them. Deciding on what content you're going to look at, well, that's going to come, and what reports you're going to run, that's going to come along the way. That will be what you guys decide along the way. What's of value to our agency? Because I can tell you, well, these 211s run the encounters report, they run the conversations report, they run the logins report, they run the responder summary report. But you might say, well, we don't really care about this particular report, or we don't really look at that. Those stats don't mean anything to us. But the encounters report, well, yeah. So the report's description is going to help you decide, but also just the process of getting live and starting to use the service is going to help you decide that. Okay. So logging in. To log in, we use our email address and our password. Simple. Everybody gets an email address and then a password. You can change your password. You can also find your password if you lose it. Right here. When you got your activation link, it would have come from admin@sms.astrocorp.com. If you think it's in the trash, we can resend it. In a moment, I'll log in now. So hopping over to Admin tab, default to staff roster. These are all the active staff members. This is their heartbeat. The heartbeat is when they were last logged in, when they were last active. Never logged in. Heartbeat, never. So this person activated their profile by clicking that link, but didn't log in afterwards. So logging in is kind of important because you not only activate, but you also get to log in and formally see what the UI looks like initially and what page you default to. So if you haven't already logged in, or you want to come over here as an administrator and check out to see what staff haven't logged in, you may want to give them a little nudge. Hey, log in, so that you can actually, activate. You can activate without logging in, is my point. But you want to make sure that everybody logs in too. If you ever need to remove somebody from the program, if they leave your agency, just suspend. We suspend profiles. We don't destroy them. Let's look over here under pending. Okay, here's all the ones that haven't activated yet. So you can, as an administrator, pop over to staff, sort by pending, and see who hasn't activated yet, and let them know. You got to activate your credentials and log in. Administrators can resend the activation link too. This resend, that's what that's about. And then administrators can also edit their profile. Staff can't, and staff can't resend either. And when staff go to staff page, they just see their profile. When you edit a staff profile, just click edit. And then it tells you all of the sub-tabs that you can give them or not give them. Okay. Let's pop over to Users tab. So this is the user interface from the Users tab point of view. This is where all the live help happens. This is where people will text their zip code to 898-211, and it will show up here. So I'm going to text my zip code or I'm going to text a zip code in your service area to show you what it looks like when somebody opts in. So all I'm doing is I'm pulling open my phone. I'm going to 898-211. I'm going to text 70632. I'm just picking the one at the top. And I'm going to click send. If I have audio turned on, I hear a soft little tone, and then it pops to the top of the queue. Over here are my attributes for the case that I'm looking at. So if I click on this phone number, the attributes are going to change because now I'm looking at the attributes for that phone number. Okay. And then you can see here, I've done some testing, right? I opted in, I opted out. This is the automatic message that goes out at opt-in. The live help by text is coming soon. To get help now, call 211 or visit website. Now let's say I want to respond to this guy. What do I do? Okay. Now I've got the text box, and I've got my canned messages over here. And I can move that attributes around as I see fit. And also hide it. I'll be inspector. So here are some examples of canned messages that we've set up for you guys. Introduction canned messages. In progress canned messages. Closing. And follow-up. See how they change when I select the group? So introduction. Hi, thank you for contacting 211. How can I help you? Now, if this was a personal CAN message library, it might be, hi, this is Jonathan. How can I help you? Or, hi, thank you for contacting 211. This is Jonathan. How can I help you? When I send a message to a client, just goes out like that. This over here is the delivery status. So we track all outgoing messages. We track them according to carrier grade tracking protocols. So I have a phone with AT&T, but if I had a phone with Boost, or I had a phone with Verizon, T-Mobile, or any of the mid-majors small, if I have a burner phone, we have delivery receipts for all of it. If I have a government issued phone, delivery receipt, all of it. The delivery receipt you can take to the bank. Because why? It's the carrier letting us know this message was delivered to this phone. So if a client calls you up and says, you said you were going to text me some referrals, or you said resources, and I didn't get it, and I don't know what the heck is happening, and what's wrong, you can click on their phone number and go, oh, well, your carrier said it was delivered at such and such date and time. And then they go, oh. You go, oh, okay, do we have the right number for you? And then you're checking their mobile number to make sure it's the correct mobile number. But it's not about whether or not they got the message. Important. So then I have a conversation with the client, right? How can I help you today? As I said, we can make this more customized, right? It can be, hi, how can I help you today? Or, hi, and we will help you in a moment. In the meantime, could you please text the issue so that that's automated? Okay. And then once you get the issue, and maybe you've got the zip code and county, and then now you're looking in your database for the proper referral, if you've got enough information. If you don't, it's just a back and forth conversation until you do. Sending content. So content can be copied and pasted directly into this box. And you can copy as much information as you need to. If it's spread out like it is here, extra line spaces, extra line, we're going to format it for you. So you don't have to format content. Then it tells you how many messages you're sending. 727 characters of 160. This message will be split. So automatically we'll split this and send them as sequential text messages. So let me show you how that's done. Just click send. And you can see there, all those messages will get delivery receipts. And they're sent in the proper order. So when we do the specialist training, we're going to focus on this piece. We're going to focus on the live help, opting in, having a conversation, providing the referral, and then closing the case. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Nope. Thank you for contacting 211. You may dial 211 from your phone or text your zip code to 898-211 for more helpful information. And close it. That's it. So we'll go over that live help piece, what that all means, what happens to have a conversation. Then we'll also cover the referrals tab. The referrals tab, you can send content to callers, as many callers as you want. People who you simply put in their phone number, and then you put in the content here. This text box works the same as the text box on the Users tab. You can even data mark it. And then when I send this content to this phone number, it will be marked as a referral in the database. Now, let's say I want to send a referral to multiple people. I can just do comma separated values, or I can upload an Excel spreadsheet with mobile phone numbers in it. Referrals tab is an on-ramp to texting. It doesn't have to be a referral that you're sending them. It could be a link. It could be a phone number. It could be to multiple phone numbers, multiple mobile numbers that you're texting it to. So you could have a burst in calls about energy, and then you tell all those people, in a moment we'll text you the information you want. Just give us your mobile number. And then you're keeping track of all those mobile numbers. Put in an Excel spreadsheet, browse and upload your Excel spreadsheet, put your content in there. Suddenly, you're sending the referral that 100 people needed all in one fell swoop. So, really wonderful tool and really simple to use. And I'll show you what it looks like. When I send a referral to a caller, we still stick it in the queue. We don't update it like we do with a new text, you see. It doesn't change the status. It blinks because texts are happening with it. But that's it. It doesn't change its status. It doesn't highlight yellow. It doesn't make the audio alert. It's all just referrals to people who have called you. But we still are tracking it in the system. When I click on that phone number, I can verify that that happened. How do I know that this is a referral to a caller? Because of the keyword. And it's highlighted a lighter blue. And then the content of the referrals follows. But let's say a client gets a referral from you after having or while they're on the phone with you. They text something back. This number was disconnected. Well, now we're going to tell you about it. Now we're going to push it to the top. Because now it has a question. Because of the referrals we sent, they texted back afterwards saying the number was disconnected. So you have the choice to either send them, tell them to call you, or have a conversation with them by text. It's your choice. If you're going to have a conversation with them by text, open up the case, have a conversation. Sure, right? Or sure. Sorry to hear that. What number did you try? So now I'm in conversation mode with this individual. I can also, guys, open up and be open and responding to multiple conversations at one time. To do that, I just open up the additional conversations. Then you can toggle between your conversations as you provide the support. The thing you need to know about this, These will update live with responses. What I'm showing, the background cases. But when you send a text to the foreground case, you can't send a text to a background case. You have to make that case your foreground case. So if I see that this client 831 sends me a response, I need to view that case to then send them a response. The background cases are for your visual purposes only. That this is what happened. This one's now ready to put to the foreground to now have a conversation with, or to respond to after they've sent a response. You can also isolate just your cases that you're working in so that you're not bothered by other cases. All right, admin tab. Here is where you can add clients to the service. So you can convert a caller to a text conversation just simply by going admin, fully opt-in, put the phone number in here, select the zip code that they're in, and click fully opt-in. You can send an additional message or not. It's going to get the opt-in message for that zip code. So now I've got a new case in the queue. Well, I was responding to it. If I've been closed on it, it'd be a new case. There it is. As you can see there, it's an app opt-in, right? Why is it an app opt-in? Because the zip code is there, but it's highlighted in lighter blue. But I took a case, a phone number, and I put it into the service to have a conversation with it. Partial opt-in, invitation-based texting, inviting a group of people to opt in. So you can have as many invitations as you want. You can take as many phone numbers as you want. You can export a whole group of mobile numbers, people who contacted you last year about tax support, notify them this year that, hey, we can text you information as well. We see that you guys got support. We refer to this as relational INR. What was good for you last year is probably good for you today. Or what was good for you about this topic is probably good for you about that topic. And so you can use your CRM and the mobile numbers that you have there to provide text messaging to that group of mobile numbers simply by exporting that list and uploading it and sending out one of your invitation texts to them. Okay, opt-out tab, that's just to remove a client or opt them out if they text something other than stop, quit, or unsubscribe. So most people know that they can text stop to opt out. If they don't, if they say, please don't text my number anymore, put their number in here and opt them out. You can also block a phone number. You may want to consider this, though, as something that an administrator does and not a frontline specialist. Because when you block somebody, they can't opt back in. You can unblock them, though, so they can have a timeout, right? Auto responses. Auto responses are just messages that go out during your after hours or holidays, or we're down. We're in the midst of a hurricane, God forbid, right? Or we have some other thing that's going on. Lights are out, or the electricity's out. Nobody can come in today. Whatever that is, that situation, auto responses is where you go to activate the bounce back message that goes out to everybody to tell them we can't support you today, or we aren't providing support right now. After hours messages or holidays. And then the canned responses and where you go to edit them. And admins by default can edit everything. Whereas a frontline specialist, if they're given personal canned message libraries, they can only edit the ones that they add. The markers. This is where you edit the things that you can assign to a profile. So when we look at a user profile, for instance, this one, and we look at the inspector, the data markers is where that information resides. And this is where we're going to populate, for instance, the moment we know what their zip code is, we're going to populate that with the data marker so that you can then send content to people by zip code. But you also might want to remember when I did that referral to a caller, and I said I data marked at the same time? Well, there you go. I data marked when I sent that referral to that caller. Food, Meals on Wheels, right? Or food meals. So then now I can get at this client that way in my data, or I can group text them that way. So under the admin tab, markers is where admins edit that content. If you don't like the problem needs categories, change them. If you want to turn them off, turn them off. If you want it to appear at the top, oh, there's a bug there. Anyway, you should be able to, oh, I did, I changed the order. Okay, so we changed it from the top or bottom to the top. So that's how it appears now when I select. That's the first thing that appears there. You also have subgroup, subcategories. So you can really be tricky with your data markers. The notes tab is just for, this is what happened during the encounter. Okay, data markers, staff. We talked about the staff roster. The groups tab. This is where you can build content and send content to groups of people. So I can build a group by data marker, food. Everybody I marked with that data marker would appear. Add all. Food, referrals. Save. Now I've got an ad hoc group of people who texted us about food referrals that I can send content to. But as you can imagine, mark veterans, mark certain types of veterans, send content to those veterans. All kinds of uses. This groups tab is kind of, if you're familiar with how you can email market, right? Segment, send certain emails to certain groups of people. That's what this groups tab is all about. And you can give a specialist access to this groups tab or not. Reminders tab is where you can go to create content that goes out to everybody or subgroups like zip code. If you know that, for instance, everybody who texted you and this, and this need to know about something, you can send them, everybody who's texted you in those zip codes, information. Extremely powerful. Groups tab and reminders tab are very powerful tools. If I don't pick a group for the message to go to, then don't select group. I'm just going to say that it is active and manually schedulable. Won't pick a time for it to go out. And I save it. So now what I've got is I've got content that I can assign to a single user. And that's accessed right here in your inspector. So now I can say, delay this 7 days. And suddenly I've got a follow-up text going to that client. Where does it appear? Under unsent. Scroll over, there it is. So the service isn't just about in the moment live text. It's also about future text, sending content in the future or sending group text to people, subcategories of people, grouping them however you want, texting in whatever ways you can imagine. Surveys, quickly. Surveys are done. We set them up for you, and then you can then use them with your clients. So when you have a survey that you want to use, you would say, hey, Jonathan, this is the survey. We want to ask these questions, and we want it to trigger at 5 days after they have an encounter. So 5 days after everybody has a text encounter, they get the following 3 questions. Did you follow up with any of the referrals we gave you? Yes, no. Were any of the referrals helpful that we gave you? Yes, no. Would you recommend this service to somebody else? Yes, no. Things like that. You can also set up surveys that are pre-encounter. So eligibility surveys. Did you get food from this food bank in the last 3 days? Things like that. So survey tools can be built and used with clients in any moment in time. You guys decide what the survey content is, and then you decide when it's going to be addressed or sent to the client. The reports are done in 3 primary categories. The manual report is run, and then you can select the report and then select the date range for the last year, if you want, going as far back as a year. If you need to go back before then it's chunks of time before the year. So January 1 to January 1 of 2015, 2016, right? So that you're going back, but you're going in chunks of years at a time. And then all these reports are available to you in the manual subtab. Right? And then the automated reports are, I want to run the encounters report, but I want to run it daily. Or I want to run the encounters report, but I want to run it weekly. And then just create that report. And then every Monday, you'll get an email saying your encounters report is ready. So automated, the difference, you get the same reports that are in the reports description guide. It's just that automated run according to a schedule, manual or whatever you want it to run for. And then it runs after midnight every day that you set that up. So if you're the kind of person that just wants an email when my report is ready and you know how frequently you want to run that report, then go to automated. If you're somebody that wants to pull data in an ad hoc way, then go to manual, because that's going to let you, run for whatever time period you want with the parameters I mentioned. You can also export all your data to a FTP of your choosing. So at any point in time, you could say, export all our data. The combined reports is if you have multiple queues. So if you have a program set up in a programs queue where group texting is happening, you can run a combined report for both queues, an encounters report on your INR queue, and then an encounters report or a group texting report, outgoings on your programs queue. when you guys are ready to launch, you're going to let us know. And then we're going to activate we're going to change out all your opt-in messages. You can check all your current and active zip codes just by going to info, home, info. I'll tell you all active zip codes and what we're sending. All right, let's answer some questions. Do you guys have some questions?
I'm sure we will. I think we may need to discuss some things among ourselves.
Okay.
I'm excited about it. I think there's a little bit more for us to think about what we need to do.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't have to all be done right at the get-go.
No.
We get the basics and then we can add.
That's right. Let's get your live help going. And remember, you can start to use this referrals tab immediately. You don't have to wait to start launching with the live help to start using the referrals tab. You can start sending callers text now. And that might be a good way to get started, because that gives you a feel for how the application works in that way. And it also gives you a feel for if somebody does reply to one of your texts that you send to them after having or while you're having a call with them, you can see how that appears in the user interface. So referrals tab is available now. Like, you guys can log in and start using that. Users tab and conversational texting is available for you to test. Anyone can text their zip code and it's going to pop into your queue. It's just we're not sending them the opt-in message yet that is it's your live message. We're sending them a temporary message, right? So you can practice in the queue. It's just that if you opt in from one of your zip codes, you're just going to get that welcome message that says that live help isn't available at this time. As soon as you guys are ready to go, though, we're going to swap that out. So decisions that you have to make now are, how are we going to start? What CAM messages are we going to use? How are we going to organize our CAM messages? And then what are we going to ask clients, or how are we going to manage the opt-in message? And then once we get your live texting going, then you can really, start to look at additional uses. You can start to look at programs, group texting, and how you can benefit from all of that. Any other questions? Miranda, was that Miranda that was speaking? No, that was Jan.
Yeah, this is Jan, and I spoke that I said there's a lot to take in, and that I knew we would have questions, but after we put our heads together after this call. But I am really excited, and I know it has so many uses, and I was jotting down ideas as you were going through the different functions.
Good. Well, and then next step, guys, is once we get your settings figured out, then let's schedule your specialist training. That one's shorter, and that one's just going to focus on the live help, responding to a case, and or sending a text to a caller. Okay?
Sounds great.
The admin session's a little bit longer, more drawn out, because we have to cover so much.
Right.
Okay?
Well, thank you so much.
No problem.
Aaron or Miranda, any questions?
No, I think
This is Aaron. I don't have any questions. Yeah, I don't either. This is Laura. I'm good.
Okay. And Miranda wrote in and she said she was having problems with her audio. She has no questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.